The strategy we chose for our MTV project was Collaborative Strategic Reading, or CSR. You might be familiar with this strategy from class. Here's the image we used when talking about it. Collaborative Strategic Reading, or CSR, is an evidence-based practice to improve students' reading comprehension through maximizing student engagement. CSR has two main goals. 1. Allow all students access to content area instruction from the general education curriculum, most notably expository text in social studies and science textbooks. 2. To provide practical procedural practices for classroom teachers to implement that are inclusive of students both at risk and with learning disabilities.
While the context of CSR can be both adaptable and vary depending on student need, this strategy is used most notably in middle school and high school content area classes such as science and social studies. Collaborative strategic reading is a best practice in the area of improving reading comprehension in all students, but CSR would be an ideal Tier 2 RTI intervention to use with students struggling with comprehension because of its reliance on the use of small groups. The use of small groups allow for a key characteristic of Tier 2 instruction to take place: the ability of the classroom teacher to monitor student progress and apply frequent feedback. The participation through the group roles match the need for Tier 2 instruction to involve many opportunities to respond and practice.
Before instruction, the teacher needs to select a reading passage. After the passage is chosen, the teacher should group students heterogeneously and assign their roles. The four main roles are leader, clunk expert, gist expert, and announcer. If there are more than 4 to a group, these are the additional roles that can be added: timekeeper and encourager. For our example today, we will only be using the roles of the leader, clunk expert, and gist expert. Lastly, the teacher will prepare the additional materials needed to implement CSR. The teacher will need to provide students with learning logs to keep track of their learning. Cue cards will also be provided to the students for each assigned role. The cue cards will help students remember the responsibilities of each role.
The collaborative strategic reading strategy begins by breaking up the reading process into 3 distinct stages: before reading, during reading, and after reading. Students use their learning logs and roll cards to guide them through these stages of the reading process. Each stage develops the 4 strategies used in CSR: preview, click and clunk, get the gist, and wrap up.
The text we'll be using for our lesson today is Who Was Abraham Lincoln in the Who Was book series by Janet B. Pascal. The students reading this text are identified as Tier 2 students requiring further explicit small group instruction in comprehending expository texts.
Before reading, students preview the text by focusing on activating prior knowledge and making predictions about the content they are about to encounter. By looking at titles, keywords, subtitles, and pictures or graphics within a text, students will begin to connect the material to what they know and what they think they will learn. The leader instructs students to record both what is known and predictions on their learning logs. Students share these with the group before they begin reading the text.
I'm the leader! I'm the clunk expert! And I'm the gist expert! And this is CSR! Let's brainstorm what we already know about Abraham Lincoln. Great, Kaylee, what do you already know about Abraham Lincoln?
Well, I know that Abraham Lincoln was a president, and he was known to be honest.
Awesome. Now let's predict what we think we will learn about Abraham Lincoln. Great, Haley, what do you predict you will learn about Abraham Lincoln?
I predict that I will learn more about what Abraham Lincoln did as president.
Cool. Let's read!
During reading, students focus on vocabulary comprehension and identifying the most important ideas by clicking and clunking and getting the gist. Students should break the text into 3 distinct sections before they begin reading. These sections will vary in length depending upon the specific text being used, but should be decided based on logical breaks in the text, such as paragraphs. After each predetermined section has been read, students will stop and collaborate with their groups about the clunks and gists. As students read, they will individually record clunks, or words they do not understand, in their learning log. Students will bring these words up for discussion, and the clunk expert will guide the students in using one or more of the 4 fix-up strategies to understand the unknown word.
Let's read our first section. Make sure you use your learning logs along the way.
anyone had a clunk that they want to discuss as a group?
I do. I was confused about what the term abolitionist meant.
That's a good question, Chan. Let's think about our fix-up strategies and which strategy would be best to help us solve this clunk.
There are 4 fix-up strategies students can use to understand the vocabulary they identified as clunks while reading. The first is to reread the sentence, inserting a blank where the clunk should be. Think of another word that may fit in the blank, and chances are the new word is a synonym for the unknown clunk. The second strategy is to reread the sentence before and after the clunk to see if they provide context clues to figure out the unknown word. Third, identify if the clunk has any known prefixes or suffixes that might aid in understanding. And 4, break apart the word into smaller, known words.
Now that we know more about the fix-up strategies, I think we can use the context one for this one. Let's turn to page 31. On page 31, it says, abolitionists were people who were fighting to make slavery illegal. So I think that answers our question about this clunk.
I think so too. Now that we've talked about the clunks, let's try and think of what a good gist for this section would be. Who has an idea about the main idea of the section we just read?
Well, the section talks a lot about the Kansas-Nebraska Act.
I thought it was mostly about how some states wanted to have slaves and others didn't. Well, considering both of those, I think that the best gist for this part would be that the Kansas-Nebraska Act tried to create rules regarding states and slavery. Let's write it down.
After all the clunks have been addressed, students will talk about gists, or the most important ideas discussed in the section. Just as with the clunks, all students will consider this while reading, but the gist expert will guide student discussion after. To identify gists, students will identify what person, place, thing, or idea the section is mostly about, consider the most important information given in the section, and restate that important information in a sentence of 10 or fewer words. It is important to note that there will most likely be only one gist per section. If students have several different ideas, they will need to collaborate to decide between themselves which is the best representation of the information in that section. After reading, students wrap up by understanding and remembering what they have learned. This stage of CSR is done by generating questions and reviewing the content. First, students will use what they have learned to generate questions about the text. These are not questions that students still have about the text, but rather questions one could answer after reading to assess comprehension. Students should develop questions and then discuss with their groups. They should think about whether their questions address higher order thinking skills or if they are more surface level. Students must be able to answer their questions. If the questions cannot be answered, they need to be revised or clarified before moving on. Next, students will review what was learned by jotting down some important ideas from the text or addressing their specific predictions from the preview stage. Once students have developed these ideas on their own, they will share out with the group.
Now that we finished reading, let's think about some questions about the important ideas in the passage. Keely, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. How did Abraham Lincoln die?
Unfortunately, that wasn't answered in our passage, so we can cross that one off the list. Keely, what about you? My question is, what was the Kansas-Nebraska Act? That's a great question because that was discussed in our reading. To wrap up, let's reflect back on what we learned. Haley, what'd you learn?
Well, I was hoping we would talk about my prediction that the book would talk about Abraham Lincoln's presidency, but this section didn't talk about that. We did learn that the Kansas-Nebraska Act was what led to him coming back to politics.
Keely, what about you?
I learned that abolitionists are people who don't like slavery.
And that's why CSR is so great.
To review, CSR has 4 main steps. 1. Preview. 2. Click and clunk. 3. Get the gist. 4. Wrap up. In CSR, students get a role assigned to them and work together to enhance comprehension around a content area text, such as a social studies or science textbook. CSR is best used for small group Tier 2 RTI instruction. The CSR process guides students to make predictions, uncover unknown vocabulary, and solidify main ideas.
CSR supports all learners and is a strategy anyone can use. The research supports the use of CSR when working with English language learners or with students who have a learning disability. While it is encouraged to pair CSR with curriculum-based expository text, CSR can be generalized to fit any text that students read. The student roles used in CSR can be used in a variety of ways, including when students are examining a text in a literature circle. The assigned roles, accountability through the learning logs, and the structure of the groups allow everyone to participate in the learning and have a chance to be an expert. Students have to take a shared responsibility and make equal contributions to the group. CSR gives students actionable steps to apply during reading to enhance their understanding of the text. Through the learning aspect of CSR, students are able to learn how to collaborate with one another. CSR promotes student engagement, interactions with peers, and reading comprehension. Students can use this tool in any group setting as collaboration is key to success in the 21st century.
Now that we've learned all about CSR, I think I can really utilize this when I read my science textbook.
Yeah, and since I'm learning a new language, I think it will really help me in all of my content area classes. What about you, Haley? I think with social studies it'll really help me because that's my hardest subject to comprehend.